Welcome to 10 Tips for Parents on Sheltering in Place Without Using Your Mind. I think next week I'll do a webinar on how to host a Zoom webinar. No, I won't, because I actually am not an expert on that. Thank you to those of you who are here, who have made it in. Great to see you. I know some of you are just joining right now because we had a snafu on the number of people who could attend. I'm super sorry about that. The good news is we are recording this, so this content will be available shortly on my website and on the website of Debbie Reber, my special guest who has joined us. So we are officially getting started with this webinar. I'm Julie Lythcott-Haims, and you probably know that if you've made it into this webinar, but maybe you're somebody who followed someone else's link and decided to sign up for this thing. So if you don't know who I am, I'm super extra grateful that you're here. Fundamentally, I believe in humans. That's what my work is about. If you look at my website, it says that somewhere. I believe in humans, and I'm actually rooting for all of us in this life to be okay, to figure out who we are and what we want, and to make it in this life. And I try to make my work, my books, my public speaking, my interactions with humans about helping humans thrive. And I don't know about you, but it's been hard to feel that feeling of thriving these last couple of weeks as we've been contending with coronavirus, COVID-19. It's been incredibly difficult. It's been scary. It's been bewildering. It's been frustrating. And I haven't felt that I've necessarily been thriving. And I thought, well, maybe others feel the same. And so today's webinar is about trying to create a space, this webinar, where all of us can feel a little bit more held, more closely held, a little bit more supported, and a little bit less lonely. And so that's why I decided I wanted to do this. I'm struggling because whenever I give a public talk, I actually get energy from any one of you that might be in the room. I love people that much. I connect with people in that way. So I feel you. When you're there, you came to see me, but I'm there to be with you as well. And that's a challenge for me with the webinar format. So if you're listening right now, particularly if you're listening live, send me some vibes so that I can try to feel you through these technological connections that are miraculous and amazing. Because I need you. You might think you need me. I need you. And we're in this together but apart. I am super thrilled to be joined in this endeavor today by my new friend, Debbie Reber. Debbie's my special guest. She's an author. She's a New York Times bestselling author. She's written an amazing book called Differently Wired, which is about supporting kids who have some kind of special needs. She's a producer of an amazing podcast called Tilt Parenting. And I found out that she wrote a couple Blues Clues books back in the day, a wonderful kids series that she was a part of. And so you've got Blues Clues, Debbie Reber here. Debbie, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can introduce yourself to the folks at home.
Thank you, Julie, for that lovely introduction. I just want to let you know that we're up to about 300 people. So what you did worked, okay. And everyone's sending you lots of vibes in the chat box. And yeah, as Julie said, I have a community actually called Tilt Parenting, and I launched it 4 years ago, primarily as a podcast and a resource for parents who are raising what I call differently wired kids, but that's really kids who have any sort of neurodivergence. It could be ADHD or being gifted or learning disabilities. And I created that because I'm a parent of such a child. I have a 15-year-old differently wired son, and just really felt that it was too difficult to get resources and that parents like me were feeling super disconnected and overwhelmed. And it's been a great 4 years and really kind of starting a movement about how can we change the conversation around neurodivergence. So I'm just thrilled to be a part of this conversation today. Thanks for including me.
Thank you, Debbie. You know, I met Debbie officially about 2 weeks ago because she was giving her fellow authors a tutorial on how to put our work online. So here she was teaching me, and that turned into an amazing webinar we recorded with about 3 or 4 other authors about 10 days ago a pediatrician, a psychologist, just about sort of just trying to get our hands around this, not literally, but our brains around this virus. And so Debbie's actually signed on to be to help me produce this event today. She's kind of managing, looking at the chat. She's going to be looking at your questions and so on. So I'm delighted to have you here for your expertise, Debbie, but also your parenting expertise and for your Zoom webinar expertise. It's my fault that I didn't have the settings in the correct place to accommodate all the amazing registrants. I'm so sorry about that. Definitely lessons learned for next time. Okay, so here we are. And I want to start with gratitude for each one of you who's watching this. Last I looked, we had over 2,000 people who registered for this thing. And I don't know how that happened because we put the word out 2 days ago. And I'm just blown away by the faith and trust that you're showing in me and in Debbie by deciding to be a part of this. I know that school districts have forwarded this link, and parenting forums have, and mental health groups have, and individuals have. Heck, my 81-year-old mom is over there right now, I think, watching this, which is so awesome. And I really feel that the hope and trust and faith that you're placing in me and Debbie in deciding to make us part of your day today. I feel it. It's a lot, but a lot in a good way. So my job and Debbie's job is to try to make this time together feel that it's been worth your while. And we really take that very seriously. So here's how this is going to go. I have 10 tips that I've put together for sheltering in place without losing your mind. And Debbie's going to chime in whenever she wants to share her thoughts on the topics that I've raised. You can comment to each other in the chat. You've figured that out. If you're one of the first 100 participants, you have access to the chat, and you can post a question in the Q&A. Debbie's going to be monitoring that. She's going to be throwing me those questions at the end. We're going to try to save 20 minutes at the end to go through as many questions as we can. If you emailed me questions in advance, I'm going to do my best to reply to each and every one and to share them with Debbie as appropriate as well. But if you are watching and have a question, and you want it addressed, you can email Debbie at info@tiltparenting.com. That's info@tiltparenting.com. She's going to be checking her email, and we'll do our best to answer these questions. Before I get to the 10 tips, I want to have a word with you about this virus. It's the coronavirus, and it causes the disease COVID-19. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because we need to use those terms, folks. I'm saying this because members of our community who are Chinese or more broadly Asian are being targeted with acts of hate and violence right now because some people have decided to call this thing the Chinese virus or the Wuhan virus, and that is not okay. It's simply not. There isn't a single Chinese person who is to blame for this virus. And so we need to do all we can to make sure the narrative remains coronavirus or COVID-19. If you hear people using different terms, I encourage you to summon the strength, the guts, the will, the heart to correct them. Because members of our community are suffering because of this labeling. And we are bigger than this, people. We are better than this. And we can't let our fear fuel anger. We're all afraid for really valid reasons. We're afraid of a mysterious thing called a virus, but we must not let it turn us against one another because we are one another's greatest strength and greatest gift as humans. So that said, a little bit more about the virus. The virus needs humans. It needs us to stay alive. It can't live for very long on surfaces or in the air. It needs us mingling with one another, hanging out with one another. That's why we're being asked to shelter in place, to practice social distancing, to flatten the curve, which is the more empowering term. Believe it or not, if we all stayed home for 2 to 3 weeks, all of us, all at once stayed home, we would win. We would win. We would beat this thing. But that is so hard for so many reasons. Individual reasons, political reasons. Many of us can't not go out. We have to go out because we're working essential jobs. I mean, mad props to our healthcare community for what they're doing to try to keep us all safe while keeping themselves safe. And many others of us are working in jobs that are essential to the functioning of our society. And so they have to go out. And so it's sort of impossible to keep everybody in, but we're doing our best, our very best to flatten the curve. And that's what's essential in order for us to beat this thing. However, we humans, we need one another. We are essential to each other's wellness. We're a social species. We actually need human connection in order to be okay, in order to thrive. Babies that don't get held, babies that don't get human connection wither and die. Okay, that's not going to happen to those of us who are not babies, but we still need ways to connect. And we're all hungry for that in a very deep psychological sense. We all, every single one of you watching me, I need this, Debbie needs this, everyone we know needs to know we're loved. We need to know we matter. We need to know that we're seen and heard and cared about, all of us. And so in doing what we need to do to stop COVID-19, to stop the coronavirus, we're having to figure out these new ways of giving each other the love and the connection that we need. So this webinar is a connection. That's why I'm doing this. And so let's turn to those tips, shall we? I'm going to ask Debbie to chime in, as I've said, when she feels like it. And without further ado, here are my tips for you on how to shelter in place without losing your mind. So I began sheltering in place about 2 weeks ago, and that's because I tend to get pneumonia really easily, and I can tell you it's no fun, it's scary. And so I just knew when I began reading about this thing, this is not going to be good for me. I need to stay in. I need to reduce my connections and interactions with people out in the world. And so whether you're still going to work because you have to, or still allowed to, or staying home because you want to or you have to, here are my tips, and I hope they will turn out to be in some way useful for you. I just want you to know what my household looks like, who comprises my household. I've got my amazing life partner, my husband, Dan. We've been together for 32 years, college sweethearts. My 81-year-old mother, an amazing, beautiful woman, lives in an attached cottage. We all bought a house together here in Silicon Valley to get our kids to the quote unquote right public school. So my mom is here, part of our life, helped us raise our kids. And our kids are Sawyer, our 20-year-old, and Avery, our 18-year-old. Avery is supposed to be in college back east right now, 3,000 miles away from me here in California, but her spring break was cut short. She was supposed to go to France. It was our Christmas and Hanukkah gift to her, go to France for spring break, be with a family friend. We had to cancel that trip, brought her home instead. And then that spring break turned into not 1 week, but 2. And now she's connecting with her professors virtually for the remainder of the semester. And my 20-year-old Sawyer has been living and working up in Portland, Oregon, taking a year off college. And he decided, and we decided about 10 days ago, that it was time for him to come home. And we decided he needed to quarantine himself from the rest of us because we had formed a little germ circle here in our house. And we didn't want to have to reset our clock on knowing that we were free and clear of the virus. So he's been quarantined up in his bedroom, and there's a bathroom right next door. And we have some blue tape on the ground that demarcates the line that he must not cross. And he's a great kid, and he's a biology wonk. And so he gets it at the biology level. And he's doing what he needs to do. Frankly, I think he's loving being a hermit and having food served to him. So that's my household. And that's where these tips emerge from. So tip number 1. Put on your own oxygen mask first, people. Yes, every time you get on an airplane, you hear this. If you've flown, you know that that's what they say. And why? It's because if you don't have your own oxygen mask on first, you cannot help the person next to you who might be struggling, right? So it is not selfish to practice self-care, which is another term for put on your own oxygen mask first. You need to be looking after yourself so that you can be of tremendous use to the people you love and are responsible for. Now, I'm not here to tell you what self-care looks like. Some of y'all like baths. I don't happen to like baths. I like showers. Yes, I do shower. I like a hot shower. Some of you like a hot bath. Awesome. Okay. Whatever you know you need for you to take care of you, do not overlook these things. A daily practice, particularly now, needs to be, what do I need in order for me to be what they need? So for some of you, it's maintaining your exercise routine, figuring out how to segue it from the gym to what can you do in your house, on your street, on your block, as you take your walk. There are so many things that we can do that we don't need a gym for. Figure it out. You exercise people. I know you can, right? For some, it's, I got to read a chapter of a book every single day. I like to do the New York Times crossword. Frankly, I like to compete with my husband and try to beat him at the New York Times crossword. That's a little bit of self-care for me. Turns out all I need, I realized that beating anybody at a game for me is the way I feel loved, because I grew up in a very competitive family. I hope none of them are watching, but it's so true. Like, to win games in my family was to be loved. And I finally figured that out in therapy a few years ago. And so I told my husband, I was like, every time I beat you at the crossword puzzle, I feel loved because I won. And he said, if I just tell you I love you, if I finish first, is that enough? And I looked at him and I said, yes, actually it is. So he tends to beat me at the New York Times crossword probably 4 out of 5 times. But he manages to always look up and say, I love you. And it just, anyway, that's important for me. I'm off topic, aren't I? No, I'm not, because I definitely need that as part of my putting on my oxygen mask. So whatever it is for you, weeding your garden, cooking your favorite breakfast ritual meal, whatever it is, taking time, meditation, prayer, whatever it is that you need for you, do it daily, honor it, put it in the schedule. In fact, having a schedule in these uncertain times is a great way to reduce the sort of uncertainty, anxiety. Am I going to get dressed? Am I not? Am I going to put on clothes? Am I going to do my hair? Am I going to do this work? Am I going to read this book? All of that can be this kind of pop in anxiety in our heads. Put a little schedule together for yourself about the things you've decided you're going to do today or next couple of days. And that might turn out to feel like really good self-care for you. What have you got for us, Debbie?
Well, this is one of my most favorite topics, self-care. It's something I talk a lot to parents about because it seems like it's an optional thing and it's not. So I just appreciate everything you said. And also just to say, I am totally a shower person too. I think that's a big divide among people, but anyway, I'll just share that the way that I define self-care is that it's something that is intentional and it's just for you. That's it. It could be as simple, for me, it's like listening to a podcast while I'm cooking dinner. That feels like self-care because I'm intentionally doing something that I know feeds my soul. So it doesn't have to be a big thing. And the thing I just wanted to add too is that this is such a great opportunity to model how to deal with stress and anxiety to our children, because we know that our kids are experiencing this. I mean, who knows what they're making this mean, right? This is scary for them. They're processing it in the way that they can, depending on their emotional maturity and their intellectual development. And so just showing them that, yes, I'm feeling stressed, and this is how I'm tending to myself. This is what we do. We take care of ourselves. So it's just a wonderful way to not only take care of ourselves, but to show our kids how it's done.
Beautiful. Debbie, thank you so much for that. Yeah, I like to say we're our kids' biggest role models, but whether we are their best role models all comes down to how we're behaving. They're really looking to us and they're paying attention even when we think they're not. I'm that classic parent who's like, put down your technology, kid. I'm staring at my own technology. I don't literally do this, I think, but too often my wonderful child, one of them will, come into the room, and I mean, my son's quarantined right now, but my daughter just yesterday, she came into the kitchen and she's like, hey, Mom. And I'm like, hey. And I caught myself doing it, and I just sort of slammed my phone down, looked at her in the eye and said, hi, baby. Realized I'm not being a good role model here. So thank you for that reminder. Okay, so that was item 1, put on your own oxygen mask. Tip number 2 is, this may be hard for you to hear, but bear with me. presume everyone has COVID-19 and act accordingly. What? Yes. Why? Well, that's how we're going to keep everybody safe. If you have it, you don't want to be giving it to others. If someone else has it, you don't want to be getting it from them. We actually will most easily adapt to the practices, the public health practices that are keeping us all safe by just assuming everybody has it. I'm not saying, oh my gosh, all of a sudden hate on everybody because you think they have it. No, no, no. This isn't about hate. It's not about anger. It's not about finger pointing or blame. This is just, let's just assume we all have it and we all have a mutual obligation not to give it to each other. I learned this from a fellow writer of colleague at the San Francisco Writers Grotto, where I'm a proud member, Caroline Paul, author of a number of books. Caroline's a former firefighter and she's kind of just this badass woman and I really respect her. And she told me that that's what she and her wife were doing, just presuming everyone has it, and that then allows them easily to just adapt to the practices that are necessary as they go and deliver Meals on Wheels meals for people in their community who are hungry and isolated. And so these are the tips that go along with presume everyone has it. It means do not touch your hands to your face. I'm a nail biter and I'm going to get to that in a later tip. But that's not a good thing for me to be biting my nails. We shouldn't be putting our hands in our mouths, in our eyes, in our noses. Okay, it's amazing how many times humans touch their faces. And I'm going to try not to ever do it during this webinar to be a good role model for you. So no touching hands to face, because that ensures that whatever you have managed to get on your hands when you touched something because you had to go out to the grocery store or you touched the doorknob or what have you, right? You're not putting it in your body, okay? Having it on your hand, much safer than having it in your respiratory system. So don't touch your hands to your face. Second tip here is keep a distance of 6 feet from everybody. And I do mean everybody. In my family, we've been practicing social distancing within the family, in part because of me and my propensity for pneumonia, in part because of my 81-year-old mother, who at her age is more likely to have trouble with this virus if she gets it. And if you keep that distance from everybody, go for a walk, keep your distance, wave at people, be friendly, be kind, but keep that distance. That's a key way to just practice in this, how to be safe in this world with the presumption that everybody has it. Wash your hands with soap and water vigorously for 20 seconds. We should be doing this really regularly now. And particularly after we've touched something that other people commonly touch, like doorknobs and light switches and surfaces of things and whatnot. When you come back in from the grocery store, we all have to venture out and get food at some point, or maybe you've decided you're getting it all delivered. But regardless, when something enters your home, that thing needs to be wiped down. Boxes that are being delivered from UPS, you can keep them, let them sit in the garage for a day, because the virus doesn't live for much longer than that on cardboard. And these are practices about keeping the inside of your home safe, keeping yourself safe. I've been doing a daily Clorox of things like commonly touched items in my home. That gives me a nice sense of control and the presumption that, yeah, even my beloved family members might have this. Let me just wipe down the things that we're all touching. And then finally here, I want to go to the quarantine. We had to presume my kid had it, right? He's joining us from Oregon, joining this family that's been practicing our social distancing from another, paying attention to our own bodily symptoms. Do we have symptoms? Do we not? When he joined us about a week into our efforts to isolate, we knew we had to act as if he had it and protect him from us, but protect us from him. And so we bring him meals at his door, which he loves. And he's like a king up there right now, my beloved son. And when we take the tray back from him, that tray of things instantly goes into a sink that has already been cleaned. The kitchen sink is waiting for his stuff. We put whatever can go in the dishwasher, whatever can't gets hand washed right away. Any garbage gets taken out. Doing our best to love him as hard as we can without touching him or and being really conscious about cleaning the things that he's touched. I know that was a lot, and everyone has their own practices for this. You might be like, she forgot to say put on gloves. That's fine. Some people are putting on gloves. That's totally fine. If you have gloves and that makes you feel safer, do it. And one final thing I'll say here is my husband's the one who's been going out to the grocery store about once a week. And when he comes in, our rule is when someone comes in from the outside world, they, looks like my internet connection might be unstable. Just gonna, okay. When someone comes in from the outside world, go upstairs, take a shower, put your clothes in the laundry. Let's get those things washed, come back down to the rest of us clean. And I've anything to add there, Debbie, or should I keep going?
You're good.
You're good. All right. Number 3, tip number 3, don't shirk your authority. All right, folks. You know that I've written a book on the harm of helicopter parenting. And if you've heard me give a talk at your school and your community, you know I tell a lot of stories on myself. Turns out I'm a helicopter parent. Turns out, yeah. And I'm not the like make you become a doctor helicopter parent, or you have to be an engineer. I'm the helper, the concierge type, the how can I make your life easier child. And I work on that, and I've been working on it for years now. And boy, did these behaviors show up big time around my daughter returning home from college. So here's Avery, she's 18. She's supposed to be having this amazing trip and to France, and instead she's at home, and then didn't even know she was going to be stuck at home for the semester. When she left her college, she thought she was coming for spring break, right? And this kid is frustrated, rightly so. This kid is unhappy. This kid is trying to sort out, what does this mean? Her friends are all starting to come home, and she wanted to go hang out with her friends. And my beloved partner and I were really struggling with how to soothe this 18-year-old who was so frustrated. And frankly, you know, a happy kid is a happy house, right? So we were kind of, she was saying, so what's the rule? And Dan and I were like, well, the government hasn't yet asked us to do, we were in this wishy-washy, like, some people are doing this and it might be good to do that. And I don't know, what do you think? I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'm saying it because if you were doing this or are doing this, I want you to know you're not alone. Finally, you know, I talked to a friend who was like, Julie, and this is a friend with 4 kids, teenagers and in their 20s. He said, Julie, the science is clear. You have to say to your kid, no sleepovers, no play dates, no, you can't interact with your 18-year-old friends who are all back from college. You cannot be together. And he's like, just, you know, the science is clear. And I was like, okay, I need to be clear. And I went back inside, talked to my husband, and we were really clear with our daughter. Like, no, honey, sorry, but no, this is not, you know, you have to practice social distancing. And frankly, I can't imagine a bunch of teenagers practicing social distancing. So I'd feel much more comfortable if you just stay here. And 2 things emerged from that. You know, tears were forming in various eyes, including my own. I felt a lot of relief in being clear and no longer being wishy-washy and ambiguous, like setting a rule and offering empathy. I was like, I know this is hard. I know this is frustrating. None of us has ever dealt with this before. It's unusual. We're trying to figure this out as we go, but these are the rules in our house. And here's why, you know, not only are we trying to flatten the curve for everybody's sake, I'm more prone to getting this thing. Your grandma Gaga is quite elderly, strong, but you know, 81. And we all need to take this seriously so that we don't allow each other to get infected. So I felt this tremendous calm, like my daughter's unhappy with me and I'm fine with that. Because it's my job to be the authority along with my husband in this house and tell her what the deal is and to create the expectation that family members will follow these rules. And it was hard in the moment, but the minute I crested that moment, I felt this relief, like I am standing in the authority that I have. My daughter needs a set of parents here who aren't asking her to make the right, who aren't asking her to figure out what the right answer is, but who are leading, who are articulating expectations and rules and boundaries. The other thing that came out of this was our daughter had looked at us and said, guys, it's like you don't trust me to keep the 6-foot distance. And she was kind of teary as she said this, and she was being vulnerable, which I really appreciated and respected. And I said, you know what, Ave? I do trust you. I'm just so afraid of this thing. So you're getting my fear, you know, you're feeling that I don't trust you, and it's coming out of my fear. We were able to kind of share in this vulnerable space about what we were actually feeling, you know, beneath the words we were sharing with each other and the body language. we got to this place of vulnerability, which actually allowed us to hear each other better. So I said to her, I do trust you. I trust that if you say you're going out and meeting up at somebody's, backyard fire pit, and you're all going to sit in chairs that are 6 feet apart and somebody's carefully done that, I 100% trust that you all know what you're doing and that you can achieve that to protect yourselves and your families. And that's, lo and behold, what my kid has done a couple of times now. Once it was in our house, our backyard. And I watched it and I smiled and I thought, yeah, we can trust these kids. I know I can trust mine. And I circled back to her a couple days later, probably the next day. And I said, honey, I just want to reiterate, I do trust you. And thank you for that feedback that it felt like I didn't trust you. So that, I guess the final dividend there was, my friend, the genius with the 4 kids, who's like, the science says kids have to stay apart. His 3 older kids came home within 12 hours and he texted me and he's like, oh my God, there's mutiny over here. None of them want to listen to my rules. And in other words, here was a parent who thought all he had to do was say, it's my way or the highway, this is the rule. And he was giving me that advice. Well, he found out it was so much harder when he actually put that into practice with his own kids. So then I was able to share with him, well, here's how I navigated that in my house. And it gave me a little bit of a laugh because, we're all vulnerable here and we're all doing our best. So Debbie, let me turn it over to you. What are your thoughts here about don't shirk your authority?
Well, I was just thinking about parents that have school-age kids, so kids who aren't necessarily out and about with their friends all the time, and we need to step up into our authority in a different way, because oftentimes we're finding ourselves homeschooling where we may never have done that before. We don't know how to kind of set the tone. And I would actually encourage parents to kind of work with their kids, like have a lot of family meetings, talk to their kids about what the expectations are for how the day is going to flow, what the kind of guidelines are, create those guidelines together, and design the school, whatever school looks like for right now, together. And, I love the story about your daughter, and this is such an opportunity to show more respect for our kids' opinions and experience as we go through this. So not like setting down, this is how things are going to be, but creating that together, and letting our kids kind of find their rhythm with doing their school, and really making sure that we don't become the kind of nags or the homework monitors or the helicopter parents in this time. So it's that kind of balance. It's a fine balance right now of designing an alliance with our kids and setting guidelines and being willing to pivot when you need to tweak those guidelines. So it's an opportunity for a lot of collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I don't have young kids. I've got these 18 and 20-year-olds, as I've said. And so I can't begin to imagine what homeschooling is like right now, what dealing with young kids who are accustomed to playdates and activities is like. Those years are far behind me in my own life. And so I bring a lot of empathy for those of you, but I'm not in the moment experiencing parenting kids that young amid coronavirus. I have seen some wonderful examples online of how everybody's handling it in their own house. Everybody's going to be different. You got to kind of seek advice, but then, pick and choose what's going to work for you and your family, remembering that your needs as a parent matter also. I saw this great graphic that said kids should be getting about 20 minutes a day of work when they're kindergartners, and you just add 20 minutes on for every grade. So if a kindergartner needs 20 minutes of work, a first grader needs 40, a second grader needs 60, which is a full hour, which means then a fifth grader would need 2 hours, and an eighth grader 3 hours, and an 11th grader 4 hours, and a senior 4 hours and 20 minutes of work. And not just work, but like breaks, right? Many of you are wondering about, can they use their devices? And this is a time to relax our fears about online time, screen time, and all of that. That's not the greater danger right now, right? We're trying to allow our kids access to some things that, will feel like a treat in this unusual time. Now, the longer this lasts, we'll revisit this in a number of weeks perhaps, but right now the advice I'm seeing from everybody is let them use their screens. You know, not forever, right? Still have the various bits of schooling that need to happen depending on their grade. But give them those time for breaks, and you know, they need to be running around and they need to be goofing off. And frankly, I'm hoping that one of the dividends from this flattening the curve, shelter in place effort is going to be that we don't then, when this is over, send them back out into the world and schedule them to the hilt with activities. I'm hoping that we're delighting in some of the free play and some of the crazy inventing of games and activities and things that are happening in homes right now. Kind of old-fashioned play. We need a little bit more of that old-fashioned play and downtime in our kids' lives for their mental health and wellness. Yeah, so I guess I'll close this one out. The don't shirk your authority by just reminding you, no play dates, no sleepovers, okay? Anytime a kid is interacting, you're thinking, it's just one kid, it's just one kid. Here's what's happening. You're basically saying, we are a family, this is our germ circle, and we're gonna let this one other kid into our germ circle. Well, guess what? That kid is part of a germ circle. And if either one of those kids' parents are having to work a job right now, there's that germ circle. You see how all of a sudden you are connected to so many other people and their germs, and they are connected to you and your germs. We don't want that, right? So this is, it's hard. It's no doubt it's hard. It's very hard. This is what we have to do to keep each other safe and well. All right, I'm gonna move on to number 4. Keep your house clean. Now, I have had the wonderful privilege for 20 years of paying somebody to come in and do the basic house cleaning every 2 weeks. And I, in the last 2 weeks, have been I've been the main person doing the cleaning in my own house. And I never knew how much fun it could be. Now, it's novel. I'm not trying to, I'm being funny here. I'm not trying to make light of other people's hard work in any way. I'm just saying, like, Julie with the gloves on and the Clorox is a sight to be seen. I have little charts up around the house where I'm recording, did I clean this? Did I clean this? I needed that, frankly, for my own mental health. Here I am desperately afraid because of my propensity for pneumonia that I'm going to contract this thing, feeling desperately out of control. And I discovered that actually being the drill sergeant on cleaning things in my house once a day gave me a sense of peace and calm and control. And so that's why I offer this. However y'all want to clean your house is fine. That's up to you. That's really not what this webinar is about. But you may find that in the chaos, in the uncertainty, in the bewildering state we're all in, that deciding, okay, but this is what I can be in charge of, you know. Maybe it's basically an opportunity for some early spring cleaning that actually just ends up feeling really good. You can look around and feel like, okay, I accomplished something, and my house smells awesome because that bleach smell, you know, it's just great. It's not just a way to kind of practice the public health measures we're trying to practice. I think it's a way to look after our own need for a little bit of control in uncertain times. All right, tip number 5 is seek social connection. I've already said at the outset, we are social creatures and we need one another. We desperately need one another. And that's why I'm doing this webinar. I'm gonna come up close. Hello, hi. I wish I could see you, but you can see me. And this is good for us, research shows. And so we gotta figure it out, folks. We are so fortunate that we are living in a time of this extreme connectedness. So you already know how to use Zoom, because if you're watching live, you're watching on Zoom. There's FaceTime, there are Google Hangouts, there are other things you can do to have these kinds of connections with each other by video, using your laptop, your tablet, or your phone. You can also make a phone call. Remember that? Remember we used to get on the phone and talk voice to voice? Whether you look at each other's faces or not, a deep one-on-one conversational connection with an old friend, a former classmate, a former coworker, a relative you hardly ever see. Think about those folks that you're only connected to, you love, but you know, outside of whatever they're showing on Facebook, you don't really know deeply what's happening in their lives, in their beings. Schedule a phone call. Make a phone call happen. That could be amazing. We're also allowed to leave the house and go for walks and be on bicycles. Okay, so march down that street. Remember, 6 feet apart from anyone you see, but wave. Bring your kindness, folks. Bring it. People are hungry. They need to hear you say hello. You can be the thing that made someone else have a better day today, right? You walking down the street with your personality and your whatever. Hey, how you doing? How's life? You know, your jokes, your music. Walk down the street playing the guitar. I don't know what it's going to be, but some beautiful things are going to emerge from this. I am certain, because we have the capacity to do amazing things as humans. So smile, wave, ask, just keep your distance. And should you come upon, you know, if you venture out to the store, make sure that store clerk sees you looking them in the eye. Make sure that store clerk hears you say, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for stocking these shelves. Where would we be without you? That will do wonders for you and your need for social connection. And of course, it'll do wonders for them as well. Debbie, I know you have some thoughts here on how to seek social connection, so take it away.
Yeah, just thinking about our kids, I'm hearing from a lot of parents who have kids who may struggle making social connections on a good day, you know, when they're in a classroom, and so they're really concerned about this setting them back. And I just want to encourage parents too to have their kids use all this awesome technology, and especially kids who aren't on their phones, you know, playing a game. My son was just playing with a friend who lives in London. They were on Skype for like 3 hours the other day playing Minecraft together. And so they're engaging, they're connecting, they were talking philosophy and politics. There was a lot going on while they were playing a game. But so this actually can be a time to safely practice some social connection for, especially for younger kids, to find out, to ask cousins or friends, like, what's it like where you live? What are you experiencing? And learn how to start understanding other kids' perspectives as well. So don't kind of, I guess I would say, don't panic and feel as though this is going to stunt their social connection and the development of those skills. It could actually enhance it in a different way.
Cool, Debbie, thank you for that. You know, I want to tell a story right now. I want to tell a story about my mom, and I think she made it on the Zoom webinar here live, so she's gonna listen as I say this. The other day, I've told you we're a 5-person household. 20-year-old is quarantined upstairs. Mom's in her attached cottage. 3 of us are in the house next door. Daughter, son, husband, me, then son upstairs in the quarantine. And my mom, we were all standing on the front porch 6 feet apart, and she let us know that she was really needing some human connection. And it was just, you know, I don't know how many days into this was for her, but it was feeling like a lot. And she was like, you know what, I need some human connection. And, you know, and she sort of casually said, you know, I've only seen you all like 3 times in the last 2 weeks. And it just really pushed a button for me. And I was like, no, Mom, that's not correct. It's definitely been more than 3 times. You know, in my mind, it's like 20 times, you know, and because I'm really trying to look out for my mother. And I don't want her to feel like she's only seen me 3 times, right? So, you know, we just had this kind of tense thing, and Mom went and did what she needed to do. She needed to go out in the world, and you know, she went to get some things at the grocery store and practiced her safe behaviors and all that. While she was gone, my wise 18-year-old daughter said, Mom, I think maybe both you and Gaga are right. I think what it really comes down to is, what does Gaga mean when she says, I've only seen you 3 times? And what do you mean when you say, no, you've seen me 20 times? You know, maybe you have different definitions of what seeing each other looks like. And it was such brilliance coming out of this child. You know, when those things happen, I'm like, damn, girl, look at you, you know, that's my kid. Look how smart she is. Look at her teaching me. And I was like, you're right. You know, that makes so much sense. So maybe for my mom, it's like an intentional visit where you plan it, or you knock on the door and you say, hey, do you have time? Can we check in? And it's like a 45-minute long visit, you know, like we're accustomed to having. I outside of the virus, go over to her place, check in, sit in this chair. You know, she might offer me, she always offers me a beverage. Maybe I have it, right? Maybe mom needs that. And every time I'm having a lot more frequent interactions, but she doesn't see those as visits the way I do. I know for me on my, you know, thoughts about the day, it's like I'm doing this webinar, I've got to write this thing, I'm checking in with mom, I'm, you know, like she might not see those check-ins that to me are important. She may not regard them as visits. So we basically, with the translation of, you know, expertise of my daughter, I was able to appreciate what my mother was saying. And so when she did come back and we connected again, mom, I shared this with her, this wisdom from her granddaughter. And I said, I want to be sure that you're having the kinds of visits that matter to you. So we have now set up a 9 a.m. coffee date with one another, where she pulls these two little stools out of onto her front stoop of her little cottage. She sits on one of them 6 feet away near the planters, these beautiful vegetable planters my mother has lovingly cultivated and tended for years. I sit over near that one and we just chat. And, you know, this has been 2 days of this now. The first chat was an hour. The second one only about 45 minutes, but nice, deep connection. And I'm telling you this long-winded story because first of all, I want my mom to know that I totally get it and love you and appreciate you. And I'm trying to model this for all of you. There's a lot going on here, can you tell? But also to just ask you, okay, you know what you need. Do you know what your loved ones need? You know, do any of you follow the love languages concept, this amazing book that you can take a little quiz and learn, you know, how do you like to show love and receive love? It's great to learn that about yourself, because how you like to show it, how you like to receive it is probably how you like to show it. Well, the 5 love languages are touch, touch feels like love, words, gifts, acts of service, and quality time. Those are 5 different things. I'm a words person. You want to show me you love me? Come talk to me. You know, my husband, who's sitting over here, right over here next to me, he's a touch person. He needs human touch. I think my mom needs quality time. Now she can't tell me right now what the truth is, but you know, I learned that this week. So I invite you to be curious about what do your loved ones need, and also for you to be vulnerable and share with them, hey, here's what I need. Here's what meaningful social connection looks like for me. We are each other. We have to have each other's backs right now, even if we cannot touch each other's hands. Okay, so be curious about these things. Lean in, find out what they need. Dan and I were even socially distancing for a couple weeks when I was just trying to have confidence that I didn't get the virus before we all knew about it. So we sleep in a king size bed, and he was over here and I was over here, and we weren't touching. And even in what I found to be excruciating, and I think he did, what I tried to do was give him such intentional eye contact. Not all the time. Am I perfect? Hell no. No, but whenever I thought of it, I put my device down. Or if one of us walked into the room, like just stop, turn, pivot, say hi, say I love you, say thank you, look in the eye instead of looking right past each other. Super important in these times. All right, I got to move on. Okay, these next ones are going to go quickly. I know we started late, but I am committed to not going over an hour if I can help it. But I'm very long-winded, which you know if you've come to one of my talks ever. Okay, number 6. So if number 5 was seek social connection, number 6 is, but also give everyone their space. Because we're all going crazy, aren't we? Dan and I have been empty nesters, AKA free birders, since August. And now we've got an 18-year-old back at home and a 20-year-old who needs food delivered to him all the time. All of a sudden, control over our time has just gone out the window. We're all in this house. Everybody needs space. Remember, those of you who have toddlers know this. You see them in parallel play. They're playing near each other, but they're not actually playing with each other. In the home, give everyone their space. One of you can be in the living room chair. The other one can be on the couch. The other one can be in the kitchen. we need to have downtime away from each other too, for our own, just let me work on my own stuff. Let me be with my friends. Let me read this book. So we don't all have to be all up on each other all the time. We had family dinner with the quarantine son, picnic style. He'd open his door, we brought him the food, then we sat 6 feet away from him on blankets up in the hallway. And we did that, I think, 4 days in a row when he first got home, which we all craved and we loved and we needed. And one night my daughter brought her guitar and we began singing House of Pooh Corner and everyone was crying, right? That lasted about 4 days. And then we're like, we're good. We don't need a family dinner tonight because it was just a little bit much. And I'm just seeing in the chat, someone saying, pay the person who cleans the house. Yes, absolutely. I'm getting to that. That's a tip that's coming up. Don't you worry. See how distractible I am? Okay. So give everyone their space. You're going to be together at times you choose. It is important to have those connected times as a family, but y'all don't have to be all up in each other's space constantly. Tip number 7, set a goal you want to meet by the time we're allowed out again. Okay, that time will come. And what do you want to look back on and say, you know what I accomplished when we were all flattening the curve? You decide what that is, okay? But I encourage you to be curious about that. Write it down in your journal or on a piece of paper somewhere, whatever you got, type it on a list, put it in your notes app, write it down, set the intention, and then practice it. For me, I'm here after what I call my roaring 40s. I'm now in my like menopausal 50s. I'm putting on weight, whatever. I'm also dealing with prediabetes. I got all the reasons in the world to try to focus on my health. And I have a treadmill in my garage. And I've been dutifully walking briskly 4 miles an hour. So it takes me half an hour to do 2 miles. And I just started upping the speed about 10 days ago. I've cut a 15-minute mile down to a 13.5-minute mile, sometimes even a 13-minute mile, which means I am running on my treadmill, not constantly for 2 miles, but I like brisk walk, run some, brisk walk, run some. Truth is, I could probably even get those numbers down. I'm just telling you, when I get out of here, watch out, people. I might be running like, I don't know. I might be ready for a 5K. Okay, you heard it here first. Do not hold me to this. Okay, whatever it is for you, think about it. Tip number 8, delight in small dividends. I told you earlier, I've always bitten my nails. So true. Probably since I was 7, stressed out kid. Whenever I'm working, whenever I write my books, I bite. But I know I'm not supposed to put my hands to my mouth. So can you see this? I've clipped them a number of times, all right? They don't look like they're long, but I'm telling you, I just recently clipped them because they were so long, okay? Like I am like scratching myself because I've got nails now. Yay, unexpected dividend. So I want you to take notice. You're essentially practicing a little gratitude, like, oh, wow, look, this happened. That's awesome. I'm awesome. I'm grateful I got nails now because I'm not biting. Debbie, you got any small dividends here so far?
Yeah, I mean, I love this because it's something I think about all the time is looking for a bright spot every day. No matter what is going on, you can always find them. And for me, yeah, my husband's home with me and we get out for a run together every day. We live in Brooklyn, we run to the water, we look at the skyline, the Statue of Liberty, and we come back. And just having that time with him every day is just a real gift. And I'm appreciating it.
I love that. Good. Tip number 9 is support your local businesses. So I mentioned the cleaning service that we've had for years. We're cleaning the house ourselves right now, but yes, we are continuing to pay them. I realize that's a privilege that I've got, and I want to acknowledge that. Just to have a cleaning service is a huge privilege. I'm making sure I'm paying that person. I have an esthetician for my eyebrows and the little hairs that come in here. And I'm paying her. She's like I've been going to her since Avery was in utero. I've been going dutifully every 2 to 3 weeks. And so I'm continuing to pay her. Think about the small business owners you frequent. Maybe you dye your hair. Maybe you get your nails done. I don't know. This sounds all very female. Maybe, who knows, very gendered. Pick your thing. I don't care what it is, but you've got someone in your life who you see regularly, maybe, you are putting dollars in their pocketbook. If you can afford to, Even if you can afford to do half of it, if you can afford to help them in some way, please do, because I guarantee you, if you're watching a webinar, there are people in your life, in your community, who have less than you, and see if you can't get out there and continue to support your local businesses. You can be ordering food to keep your local businesses going. Wipe down that food exterior package when it comes, but enjoy that food, pay that bill, tip them well. Supporting our local businesses is key to supporting our economy. And finally, tip number 10, serve those in need. There are organizations in your local community, as well as nationwide organizations, that are desperately in need of healthy volunteers and dollars. Figure out what that means in your community, whatever causes you care about. I just urge you to keep them top of mind. Who can you help in a time when a lot of resources are constrained and constricted? I mentioned my friend Caroline Paul, who is doing Meals on Wheels deliveries in this time, and I applaud her for it. And I'm excited to know what it is that you're doing in your community. If you feel like sharing that in the chat, please do. I'm going to make an ask at the end related to this once we get to the end of questions. I think we probably started this at 18 minutes after the hour. I can't quite remember. I'm trying to just go 1 hour. So we've got about 10, 12 minutes for questions. So Debbie, over to you with the questions that have come in.
Yeah, so just for viewers, feel free to type a question in the Q&A box or also in the chat box. And the first question that came in, which I think is probably relevant to a lot of people, is seniors in high school who are receiving college acceptances and being placed on wait lists. It's tough for them to make decisions. Some of them can't visit the colleges now, and they're feeling this crunch of making this huge decision. Do you have any tips on how to support them?
I have a lot of empathy for seniors in high school, juniors in high school who are just sort of starting a process that in many communities is crazy. I've got a college freshman who's feeling like, I've been waiting my whole life for this thing and it just got pulled out from under me. College seniors who are not going to get the closure, the chance to celebrate, particularly those kids who are first gen college students, you know, for whom crossing that stage in front of family and friends would have been, you know, one of the most monumental events of that family's narrative. I'm feeling all the feels for so many people around this. I guess what I would say to seniors is trust your gut. Yeah, you can't visit, but you know what? A lot of people couldn't afford to visit in the first place. So it's not like everyone has always visited colleges before deciding to accept. You're in this together with your entire cohort. Everybody's going through this. You're going to have the greatest stories to tell about how you weathered this moment. I would say go with your gut. I always tell people this when it comes to choosing college. You know, forget what everybody says is the right school or the best school or what have you. Your gut is going to inform you. When you get those acceptances, you're going to be like, awesome, I'm so excited. Or like, okay, cool, right? Remember which school made you go, awesome, I'm so excited. That's the one you should go to, okay? That's your gut. That's your inner voice saying, that's the right fit for me. Paying attention to what's happening inside of you, it's probably, you know, sort of the greatest clues to what the right college is for you. Better clue than really any other piece of information. The one piece of advice I will offer parents is, now more than ever, the finances of college are top of mind. And here's a variable you may not be thinking of that I want to just put in the mix. Some of the smallest, least well-funded places are not going to survive this degree of economic shutdown. It's a sad thing, but it's going to happen. So you want to have confidence your kid is enrolling in a place that, if you're looking at options, I would pick, and you're trying to decide between this one or this one, I would pick the one that seems to have the better financial endowment or financial prognosis, if you will. You can look at Moody's for their debt worthiness. You can just, you know, get a gauge of how likely are they to be able to weather a difficult storm and stay in business. Pay attention to that. Let's move on to the next question.
I just want to add too that Annette said that she's a high school counselor and they're building a list of alums in college who are willing to talk to current seniors. So that's kind of a nice thing too, is to look for mentors in that way. We have a question it was actually a comment that I think would be helpful for you to speak to. Someone was saying, when you're talking about the seeking social connection, that it's hard when you're feeling depleted to give your loved ones what they need. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally valid and real. I would pull my loved ones together, whatever that means in your household right now, in terms of the distancing or not that you're doing with each other. And I would say, hey, folks, just want you to know that I'm having a tough time right now. I'm feeling depleted for reasons A, B, and C. Try not to list that they're the reason. If in fact they are the reason, just pick a different reason. Like, try not to blame them, but just, I'm feeling depleted and I just need to ask for some space, or I'm just going to go take myself off and do this and that for however long, but but I'll be back, and I love you all. And when I am back, I'll be in a much better position to ask you what you need.
Yeah, that's great. We have a question on any tips for emotionally coping for parents who may not be accustomed to caring for their kids 24 hours a day for 4 weeks plus, to avoid, as a parent, impulsive discipline, or I guess maybe reacting as opposed to responding. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, these are 100% legitimate fears and concerns. And I think seeking advice and guidance from, turn to your friend group, turn to, that parent, that friend you have. You need someone, you need to vent, basically. You need to vent, you need to get stuff off your chest. It's all valid. And you need to be heard. And so that you can kind of get all that out and then take your deep breath and, get back in there with the family, having worked on regulating your own emotions. It may be that it's time to reach out and talk to a therapist, and that is a fantastic resource always, and particularly in these times. Therapists are doing video support. So if you need that additional resource and can afford it, go get it for yourself. This is a really unusual thing we're going through, and it's exacerbating all kinds of things in each one of us differently. So get the help you need, whether it's a paid professional or that trusted friend who can just listen as you vent.
And if I could just add to that, practicing self-compassion and treating yourself with a lot of grace. Many of us are probably going to make bad decisions or react in a way we'd rather not, because it might trigger our own anxieties, our own stressors, whatever's happening, or we just might reach our point, right, where we're done. So as much as we can proactively plan for situations, not when you're in crisis mode, but in other times, get together with your family, collaborate, have family meetings, talk about how you can better support each other, repair, press the reset button every night, and start fresh the next day. So, but that self-compassion is huge. Getting questions about social distancing with younger kids. So do you have some thoughts for kids who might be really little, like preschool, 3, 4, 5, younger kids who might not really get it? Any thoughts on how to support parents in knowing how to do that?
Yeah, so if you've got a kid that young, you can't practice your own social distancing from them. What I'm doing with my 20-year-old is not going to work with you and your 3 or your 5-year-old. They need you to be very close to them and to be feeding them and cuddling them and reading to them and all that. And so that you're not keeping, distance from them, obviously, but you really must try very, very hard to keep them from other children. And so this is where it's lonely and it's hard, but they can't be having those play dates. But what can they do? They can be looking at friends. You can set up a Zoom thing where they can see their friend and say hi. Maybe one little kid can read a book to another little kid. You're probably shaking your head at me right now. It shows you how far out of parenting kids this age I am, but I don't have all the answers here. Debbie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think just empathy. I've been seeing a lot of people doing Zoom or Skype Playdates of doing the same Lego project with their friend over the screen. So I think it's a time to get really creative, and for parents to lean in too.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Let me say one thing. Let me add one, because I saw one of the questions. feeling stressed out. Parents are saying, I'm feeling stressed out because I'm not enriching my kids enough. Let me just speak directly to this. We have such a culture of the enrichment industrial complex. Like, my kid will fail at life if I'm not constantly enriching them. Take a deep breath. That was never true, and it sure as heck is not true right now, okay? Kids, one of the things that's happening for kids these days in our moment in middle class and upper middle class America, if you fall into that group, kids aren't bored anymore because we're constantly giving them activities to do and things they have to do to get better at this and that, coaching, tutoring, etc. And we've robbed them of the joy that comes after being bored, the joy that comes from designing one's way out of boredom. So when a kid is bored for a while and you're not feeding them with, oh, do this, practice this, try this, let them be bored. Why? Because that forces their imagination to click into existence, okay? It forces them to be curious, get creative, invent something, let them be bored and design their way out of boredom, and you will be strengthening the very muscles that lead, for example, to great engineering thinking, to great design thinking, to great problem solving thinking, okay? You don't think of that as enrichment, okay? It is enrichment. The things that kids are experiencing now, helping make meals, cleaning up the house, you know, figuring out how to play with their friend's Lego via Zoom, right? You're inviting your kid to take an interest in, how can we fix this? How can we solve this? What might we do next? And also just going into the other room and saying, there's stuff in that closet, see what you can play with, you know, and come out and see your house is transformed. I realize that might create a different problem, but oh, watch the imagination catch on fire.
Yes.
All right.
Thank
you want to give one
for
more?
saying that. Yes. Someone typed, there are no educational emergencies. So I just really appreciate you saying that. Let's just touch on this question because a lot of people have been asking about this. What is the right balance with rules for college students and older teens stuck at home during this time? So do we change our expectations about pitching in or having dinner together, or, you know, everyone's on their own schedules maybe for distance learning and we don't want to micromanage? So how do we do that?
Yeah. The next book that I'll be coming out with just over a year from now, it's called It's Your Turn, The Real How-To on Adulting. It's an adulting book. It's a sequel to How to Raise an Adult, but it's for young adults. And I think I've got to revise what I've already written, of course, to take this whole virus into account, because what I want to say is this is such an opportunity to practice adulting for those kids. We should not relax our expectations that they will contribute. If anything, let's get them to contribute more, okay? We ought to sit down and have a family meeting and say, okay, these are the tasks we've got to accomplish to keep this place running. You know, let's figure out as a family how we're going to get them accomplished. Maybe everyone gets to do the thing that they like the most. Maybe it all sorts out that way. Probably not. You're going to have to figure out, all right, you're going to take this one because you hate it, I hate this, then we'll swap, you know. Invite them to be problem solvers, invite them to be contributors, and say, you know what, you've been in college, now you're back at the house. You don't want to be treated like a high schooler anymore. I don't want to treat you as a high schooler. Let's talk about how things are different. Yeah, you know, you're stuck here with us, but how can we support you? How can we treat you like the much older person you are? You're accustomed to much more independence, but with independence comes responsibility, right? Greater independence and freedom, but also we have the right to ask more of you. Maybe you're younger, healthier. Maybe you're the one that goes out and does the shopping for, you know, for the family. Wouldn't that be amazing? So it's that balance. We want them to step up, and we also want to be empathetic about the unique struggle they're having. They, more so than any of us, are so hungry for that, you know, group connection, and typically they are. And so we want to empathize and then empower them to step up and do even more.
Awesome. So maybe as a last question, a lot of people were asking if you could just recap, just run through 1 through 10.
Yes, so here are the tips. And obviously my technology game is not where it needs to be. I think I can actually email these tips to everyone who registered. That is my intention. Whether the interwebs support me in that is another story, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be possible. But here are the 10 tips. And then I'm going to conclude with my final ask for you, and then we'll be done. Okay, 10 tips for for parents for sheltering in place without losing your mind. 1, put on your own oxygen mask first. 2, presume everyone has it and act accordingly. 3, don't shirk your authority. 4, keep your house clean. 5, seek social connection. 6, but also give everyone their space. 7, set a goal you want to meet by the time we're allowed out again. 8, delight in those small dividends. 9, support local businesses. 10, serve those in need. And that's where I'm going to conclude. If this has in any way been meaningful to you, this was a free webinar. I'm happy to do it. Debbie was happy to do it. We're going to share our how to stay connected with us slides in just a second. Here's my ask. If you derived some benefit from this, pay it forward. Pay it forward literally. You might have spent $10 on a webinar. You might have spent 15. You might have spent 25. Maybe you got $100 to spend. I don't know. Whatever you can afford to spend, pay it forward to some organization that needs your dollars today. You figure out what that means, but please do it. That is my ask of you. And I'll be so grateful if one of the benefits from doing this was, oh, wow, people made donations. That would be so awesome. As you think through what that's going to be, I'm going to invite Debbie to share her screen with us so that we can see how to stay connected with Debbie Reber going forward.
Tell me if you can see this.
Yep.
Okay, so this is, yeah, best place to reach me is at Tilt Parenting. This is my website. It's a weekly podcast. Julie has been a guest in the past. I've got more than 200 episodes, and it's just at tiltparenting.com. And then my book is Differently Wired, A Parent's Guide to Raising an Atypical Child with Confidence and Hope. So that's me.
Debbie. And thank you so much for joining me here, Debbie. Oh, and I'm going to try to share my screen for the first time in my life. I don't know what's going to show up, folks, so watch out. Okay, there we go. Whoops. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think I can I control it? Check me out. Look what I just did. Okay, so this is me. These are my handles. Let's stay connected. And you could just take a screenshot of this, or you can take a photo with your phone. There are all kinds of ways to remember this. Okay, folks?
And people have asked if we've recorded this, and the answer is yes, and we will make sure that it's available for.
Yes, we will. So we're done. Hey, y'all, you're awesome. I hope you felt slightly more seen, supported, and heard because of this webinar. Debbie and I are here for you. We're all in this together, but apart. These are hard times, but we'll get through it together. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We are officially ending this thing. Say goodbye, Debbie.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you. You've been great. Thank you for teaching me and helping me and supporting me through this. I appreciate you. I do. Bye, everyone.
Bye.